Your life isn't a haphazard collection of events. It's a meticulously crafted narrative guided by principles you likely weren't taught in school. From your very first breath, you've existed within a reality far more organized and purposeful than it appears. Every instance of seeming coincidence, every repeating pattern, every perceived stroke of luck or misfortune, these aren't random occurrences. Chance, as we call it, is simply the name we give to the laws we haven't yet grasped. And now, you're poised to understand one that could revolutionize your existence. The Kybalion isn't just an archaic text. It's a profound instruction manual for life, revealing the underlying mechanisms of reality obscured by the constant distractions of the world. Within its ancient pages lies a timeless law governing the unfolding of your life, irrespective of your awareness or belief. This law operates ceaselessly, an immutable force shaping your destiny. And if this message has found you now, it signals a readiness within you to perceive the invisible framework that binds all things together. Everything you've encountered, cherished, feared, or yearned for originates from a single source, mind. Not just your individual mind, but something infinitely greater. The Kybalion refers to this as the All. The first of its 7 principles, the Principle of Mentalism, states this truth directly. The All is mind. The universe is mental. This isn't a metaphorical flourish, it's a literal description of reality. What you perceive as reality is the tangible manifestation of an inner thought. The world isn't simply happening to you, it's unfolding through you, shaped by your consciousness. You are not navigating a world of solid, independent objects, you are traversing layers of vibrational frequencies sculpted by consciousness. Every tree, every stranger you meet, every coincidence, every loss, nothing exists independently of the mental field that projects it. And that field, whether consciously directed or not, is influenced by the frequency of your thoughts and feelings. Most individuals remain oblivious to this fundamental truth. They believe the world is an immutable entity, that life is a series of trials and tribulations, bestowing blessings or inflicting punishments based on capricious whims. You were taught that success is the result of tireless effort, that love is a matter of chance, and that suffering is an unavoidable aspect of human existence. But what if these assumptions are profoundly incorrect? What if every struggle, every repetitive cycle, every instance of frustration you attribute to bad luck is, in fact, the universe mirroring the invisible frequency emanating from your own mental field? This would imply that nothing in your life is detached from your inner state, and more significantly, that you possess the power to transform it. Your reality isn't a fixed, objective entity. It's a subjective reflection of your internal landscape, your beliefs, your assumptions, your fears. These are not passive thoughts. They're potent blueprints that instruct the universal field on what to manifest next. Imagine it this way. When you dream, your mind constructs entire simulated worlds, replete with people, locations, timelines, and narratives that feel remarkably real until you awaken. But what if waking life operates similarly, only at a slower vibrational rate? What if this world is a collaborative dream, a projection originating from a source so expansive that it defies comprehension? And what if you, your unique consciousness, are a fragment of that source, simultaneously immersed within the dream and actively shaping it? The moment you truly internalize this understanding, everything shifts dramatically. You cease to be a passive victim of circumstance. You stop waiting for external validation or divine intervention, and you begin to explore inward, seeking the origin of your experiences within yourself rather than externally. This marks the entry point to a new dimension of existence, a threshold that most people never cross, because acknowledging that your thoughts shape reality also necessitates accepting responsibility for everything that unfolds around you. This can be uncomfortable, challenging, but ultimately essential, because until you assume ownership of your inner world, the outer world will continue to replay the same lessons with increasing intensity until you finally understand. This is where the Kybalion becomes a catalyst for profound personal transformation, not because it inflicts harm, but because it dismantles every rationalization you've ever used to remain complacent. Once you engage with its wisdom, once you feel its resonant vibration within you, the illusion of randomness begins to dissipate, and you start to perceive the intricate mechanisms at play behind every moment. Life was never a series of random events. It was consistently responding to your inner state, your vibrational frequency, your deepest held beliefs, and your focused attention. And the sooner you align yourself with this fundamental truth, the sooner life ceases to feel like mere survival and starts to blossom into conscious creation. Certain profound revelations cannot be adequately expressed within this limited format. To delve deeper into these transformative principles, I invite you to join the Free Insights Academy newsletter by following the link in the description below. As a special introductory offer, you will receive a complimentary digital copy of the Kybalion, available for a limited time only. Remember, this journey is not about merely cultivating positive thinking. That's superficial. It's about recognizing that thought itself is the primordial seed of all form, that belief structures are the very geometry of reality. And that intention, sustained over time, materializes into physical form. Mentalism isn't just an inspiring motto, it's a fundamental law of the universe, stating that the very same mind that birthed galaxies also generates the events of your daily life. If that universal mind is truly mental, then every subtle adjustment in perception has the potential to reshape the entire fabric of your reality. This explains why cultivating self-awareness is paramount. When you transform the way you perceive the world, you simultaneously transform the experiences you attract into your life. And as you refine this self-awareness, the responsiveness of reality accelerates. The trials and tribulations diminish, replaced by resounding validations of your newfound understanding. Synchronicities become more frequent, and serendipitous encounters become the norm. You sense the veil between dimensions thinning, and you begin to perceive how your thoughts radiate outward. Functioning as silent commands to the universe, you realize this isn't magic, but the consistent application of immutable universal law. It has always been the law, and now you are remembering its inherent power. How often have you heard phrases like, "That was just plain bad luck," or "It must be fate," as if life were a chaotic roulette wheel spinning uncontrollably beyond your influence? You are conditioned to accept randomness as commonplace, to dismiss strange alignments and painful setbacks as mere accidents in a disordered universe. But what if everything you've ever experienced was part of a larger, intricate design? What if the coincidences, the near misses, the repeating cycles, what if each and every one of them were precisely calibrated, mathematically governed by a deeper, more meaningful force? The Kybalion asserts unequivocally, chance is but a name for law not recognized. In other words, what appears to be sheer luck is simply the discernible effect of an unseen cause. Just because you lack a comprehensive understanding of how something manifested doesn't imply that it was arbitrary. It simply means you overlooked the initial vibrational impetus. Life is not a game of chance, it's a continuous act of listening and responding. And every moment you experience is a subtle echo of something previously set in motion, either by your own individual consciousness or by the collective field of consciousness in which you are inextricably entangled. When something seemingly just happens, a job termination, an abrupt relationship breakup, an unexpected lucrative opportunity, you might dismiss it as random chance. But if you examine it closely, there is always an underlying thread, a recurring thought, a suppressed tension, a deeply ingrained belief system quietly vibrating in the background, influencing the unfolding narrative of your personal reality. It might be a long-held fear you've been carrying, a vital lesson you've consistently ignored, or a persistent vibrational frequency you've been unwittingly transmitting. The universe does not arbitrarily punish. It acts as a perfect mirror, reflecting back to you what is already present within you, even if you haven't consciously acknowledged its existence. This is the profound power and daunting challenge of cause and effect, another fundamental Hermetic law. It states that nothing, absolutely nothing, occurs without a preceding cause, and no cause exists without inevitably producing an effect. Whether it involves the words you speak, the emotions you suppress, the people you attract, or the situations you avoid, every single action carries a distinct vibrational frequency, and that frequency is always in motion. It radiates outward into the universal field, influencing the organization of matter, attracting specific individuals, and drawing into your experience events that resonate with that particular frequency, not because you inherently deserve them, but because you are actively vibrating them into existence. This is why life often seems to repeat itself in cyclical patterns until you consciously address the underlying causes. It's not a matter of being cursed or experiencing some form of divine retribution. It's simply the principle of resonance at play. Until you consciously shift the internal cause, the external effect will continue to resurface, manifesting in different guises, but delivering the same fundamental lesson. Once you recognize this, you begin to ask entirely different questions. You stop asking, "Why is this constantly happening to me?" and start inquiring, "What am I vibrating that is attracting this particular experience into my life?" This isn't about fostering feelings of guilt or self-blame. It's about embracing a sense of personal responsibility and recognizing that with responsibility comes the power to create lasting change. This is often why individuals who undergo a spiritual awakening often experience a period of relative isolation, not because the external world has suddenly abandoned them, but because their personal vibrational frequency is no longer compatible with their previous patterns and associations. The people they once readily resonated with may now feel distant or disconnected. The work they once passively tolerated may now feel emotionally unbearable. The entire systemic structure that previously defined their routine begins to gradually unravel. While this transition may initially feel like a profound loss, it's not. It's the universe reorganizing itself around your evolving internal state, aligning with your emerging authentic self. And it's precisely what's meant to occur. When you truly comprehend the dynamic interplay of cause and effect, you gradually relinquish the desire to directly control external outcomes. You abandon attempts to manipulate the outer world in order to achieve momentary relief. Instead, you shift your focus to the ultimate source of your reality, yourself. You begin to observe your thought patterns, track your emotional responses, and consciously choose your words and actions with greater intention, not out of fear of potential consequences, but out of a heightened sense of awareness. You recognize that reality isn't merely reactive, it's dynamically responsive, consistently attuned, not only to what you explicitly state you desire, but more importantly, to what you genuinely believe and vibrate beneath the surface of conscious thought. Consider the most significant turning points in your life. Were they truly random accidents, or were they the inevitable culmination of an intention you had long forgotten, a deeply rooted belief you were unconsciously carrying, or a persistent thought pattern you had silently repeated for years? The universe operates with meticulous precision, overlooking nothing, and every effect is patiently waiting at the outer edges of your current vibrational frequency, poised to manifest into tangible form. When you embrace this understanding, something profoundly powerful occurs. You cease outsourcing your life to the whims of chance. You relinquish the worship of external fate, and you begin to live as if you are the primary point of origin of your reality, because you are. You always have been. You simply lacked awareness of the fundamental laws shaping your narrative. But now that you recognize the pattern, you can begin to reshape the outcome, not through force or coercion, but through the intentional elevation of your vibrational frequency. Truth was never intended to be universally embraced. It was intended to be protected and nurtured by those who resonated with its power. This is why ancient wisdom teachings like the Kybalion were never openly disseminated to the masses. They weren't freely shared in public gatherings or printed in mass-market publications. Instead, they were whispered within sacred temples, encoded within complex symbols, concealed within layered metaphors, and carefully passed down from master to deserving student when the student had reached a certain level of spiritual readiness. Most were not ready, and most still aren't, because this kind of knowledge doesn't simply entertain the mind. It directly confronts it, challenging deeply ingrained beliefs and assumptions. It doesn't offer comfort to comforting illusions. It relentlessly dismantles them, and that kind of authentic awakening. A true awakening is rarely gentle. It can often be a shattering experience. In ancient Egypt, knowledge was not viewed as mere information. It was understood as a specific vibrational frequency. To teach meant to transmit a resonance, not simply to impart objective facts. Hermes Trismegistus, the mythic figure at the very root of Hermetic philosophy, wasn't simply a historical man. He was a potent fusion of two distinct worlds: Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and magic, and Hermes, the Greek messenger god, who served as the mediator between the mortal and divine realms. One represented the vastness of cosmic memory, the other, the power of divine communication. Together, they became the archetypal symbol of the bridge connecting mind and matter, heaven and earth, the seen and the unseen. But Hermes wasn't trying to be universally understood. He was striving to protect something inherently sacred. He knew that profound truth, when indiscriminately handed to the unprepared, could be readily distorted and misused. It could be weaponized by the ego, twisted to serve selfish desires, and employed to manipulate and dominate others. And so, the teachings were deliberately concealed, not out of elitism or exclusivity, but out of absolute necessity. Not everyone is emotionally and spiritually prepared to wield such powerful knowledge without succumbing to the temptation to control others. Not everyone possesses the willingness to dismantle their self-constructed identity in order to encounter truth as it truly is, not as they wish it to be. Perhaps this is precisely why the Kybalion doesn't aggressively demand your attention. It doesn't engage in enticing marketing tactics with promises of instant miracles. Instead, it waits quietly, patiently, like an antique mirror tucked away in the forgotten corner of a silent room. You could pass it 1,000 times without ever noticing it. But then one day something shifts within you. One day you pause, you turn your gaze, you truly look, and you realize that it has been silently waiting for you all along. The Hermetic laws are not merely lessons to be studied. They are transformative thresholds, and once you consciously cross them, your life can never revert to its previous state. You can't unsee the reflection in the mirror. You can't continue to pretend that your thoughts are inconsequential. You can't persistently blame the external world for what your internal world is consistently creating. And if you've journeyed this far, if you're still actively listening to this message, it's not an accident. It's a profound alignment. It signifies that something deep within you, some persistent inner voice, has been quietly inquiring and earnestly seeking, and now, finally, its persistent call is being answered. Because here is the profound truth. This isn't just a transient trend. It's not a superficial spiritual aesthetic. It's a remembering, a reawakening of something profoundly ancient and vibrantly alive that has been buried beneath layers of distraction, relentless noise, and deceptive narratives. You're not simply acquiring new knowledge. You are actively awakening to a deeper wisdom that you have always intuitively known. This knowledge has never truly vanished from collective consciousness. It has been carefully encoded in ancient myths, subtly echoed in recurring dreams, and deeply buried within the subconscious mind, waiting for the precise vibrational key to unlock its latent power. You don't merely read the Kybalion, it reads you, reflecting back to you what you are emotionally and spiritually ready to confront. This is why it never resonates the same way twice. When you're asleep, it appears to be a puzzling collection of archaic words. When you're half awake, it becomes a curiously intriguing puzzle. But when you're genuinely ready, it feels like an ancient voice within you whispering, "You've always inherently known this. You simply forgot along the way." Perhaps this is the real reason why this wisdom was concealed for so long, because it could only genuinely reveal itself when the soul, when you personally were ready to truly receive it. When the surrounding distractions become too deafening to ignore, when the recurring cycles start to repeat with increasing clarity, when the persistent questions you've been carrying finally outweigh the inherent fear of the answers, that's when the timeless teachings return, not to present you with something entirely new, but to gently remind you of the essential purpose you came here to remember. So the real question isn't merely why this law was carefully hidden. The more important question is, why is it revealing itself to you at this precise moment in your life? What aspect of your being is finally yielding, softening, or becoming receptive enough to genuinely receive what it may have once stubbornly rejected? What are you finally prepared to reclaim and integrate into your conscious awareness? You have likely been conditioned to perceive spiritual principles as abstract concepts, gentle metaphors, or optional beliefs that you might choose to embrace only if they resonate with your intuitive understanding, like subjective faith or ephemeral intuition. But the Hermetic teachings make no demands on your belief. They remain indifferent to whether you accept them or not. They are not personal. They are not intended to comfort or reassure you. They are fundamentally mechanical in nature, operating continuously, consistently, and powerfully with or without your conscious permission. The Kybalion doesn't simply present you with an alternative worldview, it exposes the very operating system of reality itself, revealing the underlying code that governs all existence. These immutable laws don't reside exclusively within sacred temples or ancient books. They are inextricably woven into your very breath, your most intimate thoughts, your interpersonal relationships, and your inherent biological structure. They are omnipresent, operating at all times, both invisible and undeniable. And once you genuinely perceive them, you begin to recognize their pervasive influence in every facet of your life. The 7 Hermetic principles are not simply 7 distinct ideas. They are 7 dynamic functions, 7 essential movements of the universal mind that collectively shape everything from vast galaxies to the most subtle of gut feelings. The Principle of Mentalism reveals that all of this, everything you perceive, touch, think, lose, and fervently desire, exists within mind. Not in a metaphorical or poetic sense, but in a literal, fundamental way. You are actively navigating and co-creating within thought made manifest. The principle of correspondence naturally follows. As above, so below, as within, so without. Whatever patterns you observe outside of yourself are essentially echoing something inherently present within you. Your inner state is not a private, isolated experience, it's a direct, continuous projection. Heal what is fractured within you, and the outer world will inevitably shift to reflect your internal healing. Resist what is calling for transformation within you, and it will continue to manifest in increasingly disruptive ways through your external reality. Then there's the principle of vibration. Everything is in constant motion, nothing is ever truly still. The only distinguishing factor between dense, solid matter and refined spirit is the relative speed of vibration. Fear vibrates at a slow, constricting rate, while love vibrates at a rapid, expansive rate, and you are continuously broadcasting a specific vibrational frequency. Every word you speak, every thought you entertain, every emotion you suppress, sends out a distinct pulse into the field. The universe doesn't merely register what you say you want. It directly perceives what you genuinely are on a vibrational level. This explains why some people have a draining effect when they enter a room, while others light it up without uttering a single word. Vibration never lies. Vibration. Polarity reminds you that apparent opposites aren't fundamentally separate. They are simply 2 ends of the same continuous spectrum. Love and hate are not opposing forces. They are simply differing degrees of emotional intensity. Cold and hot are both expressions of temperature. Darkness and light are both expressions of energy. Therefore, when you find yourself trapped in the grip of fear, you don't need to exhaustively fight it. You simply need to gradually shift your awareness and consciously slide it up the vibrational scale. This is the essence of transmutation. You don't escape the shadow by vehemently resisting it. You transform its intensity by shifting its degree until it transmutes into clarity, until it transmutes into empowered action. Then comes rhythm, the universal swing of the pendulum, the ebb and flow of the breath of life. Everything rises and falls, emotions, intellectual clarity, physical energy, passionate desire, all of it naturally moves in cyclical patterns. The key is not to desperately resist the inevitable downturns or to anxiously cling to the euphoric upturns. The key is to find your stable center of awareness so that when the pendulum inevitably swings, you don't lose your sense of balance. Rhythm reminds you that periods of contraction are not indicative of failure. They are essential phases of preparation, like a wave pulling back before it surges forward, like an inhale preceding a deeper exhale. The principle of cause and effect is the one that most people intuitively sense, but often fail to fully understand. You are already consciously aware that actions have consequences, but what you may have overlooked is that thoughts, assumptions, emotional patterns, and even the passively accepted stories you've been telling yourself since childhood also exert powerful effects. Every consciously chosen frequency generates a corresponding effect. And just because the manifestation of that effect takes time to fully materialize, doesn't mean it isn't inevitably on its way. Reality isn't passively waiting for your concerted effort. It's consistently reacting to the vibrational frequency you are emitting. Finally, the principle of gender, not in the context of biological gender, but as the energetic balance between masculine and feminine principles. Masculine energy is assertive, directing, and actively executes. Feminine energy is receptive, intuitive, and gestates creative potential. Both are essential for the complete process of creation. Every idea begins within the receptive feminine principle, felt, received, and intuitively dreamed into being, and is then birthed into tangible form through the active masculine principle, deliberately acted upon, carefully structured, and made real. If either is significantly out of balance, the process of creation collapses. Excessive masculine energy leads to burnout, driven by the relentless pursuit of goals that ultimately feel hollow and unfulfilling. Excessive feminine energy results in a state of perpetual ideation, with brilliant ideas that never find concrete grounding in the real world. True power lies in the dynamic dance between these two essential energies. These hermetic laws are not arbitrary suggestions. They operate with meticulous precision. When you intentionally begin to live in alignment with them, not just intellectually comprehend them, life begins to feel less like a constant struggle and more like a powerful current that you can skillfully navigate. You cease trying to forcefully push your way through external chaos and begin to listen with greater sensitivity for inner alignment. You stop reacting to external events and start responding with conscious intention. You stop chasing specific outcomes and start calibrating your inner vibrational frequency. Because the profound truth is simple. Life is not a random series of occurrences. It's rhythmic, mirrored, fundamentally mental, and inherently measurable. The laws are already actively at work. You are not trying to activate them. You are simply learning how to cease resisting their influence. Most people carry a quiet, often inexplicable ache deep within their being. It's a subtle sense that something is fundamentally off, that you're not fully living your authentic truth, but you struggle to articulate the precise source of the discontent. It's as if you're living your life within someone else's carefully constructed blueprint, or as if no matter how diligently you strive, something continuously pulls you back into the same unproductive cycles, the same recurring fears, the same patterns of self-sabotage, the same persistent feeling of being irrevocably stuck. You attempt to resolve this by changing jobs, partners, cities, and daily routines, but nothing external seems to truly shift what is happening internally. And so you begin to subconsciously believe the worst possible lie of all, that you are somehow inherently broken or flawed. But you're not. You're simply misaligned with your authentic self and the natural flow of universal law. That persistent ache within isn't your enemy, it's a vital signal. It's your internal guidance system alerting you to the fact that the way you are living your life is fundamentally incompatible with the truth of who you are at your deepest level. It's the subtle sound of immutable internal laws grinding against external illusions, and until you gain a clear understanding of the laws that shape your experience, you will continue to attempt to fix the external effects without ever addressing the underlying causes. Here's a tangible example of what this might look like in your life. You consciously desire to experience genuine love, but you unconsciously carry a deeply ingrained belief that people will inevitably abandon you. So every time you begin to feel emotionally close to someone, your nervous system instinctively tightens. You overthink every interaction, and you either subtly push them away or cling too tightly. And then, predictably, the relationship falters, and you attribute it to heartbreak, poor timing, or fundamental incompatibility. But underneath all of those superficial explanations was a persistent vibrational frequency. I'm not safe or worthy to be loved. The law wasn't arbitrarily punishing you. It was simply responding with precision to the dominant frequency you were continuously broadcasting. It was simply returning your own vibration back to you. Or perhaps you consciously desire to experience abundance in all areas of your life. You diligently recite affirmations. You vividly visualize your desired outcomes. But deep within your subconscious mind, you harbor the unwavering belief that money is inherently difficult to earn, or that you're simply not good enough to have more than just barely enough to get by. So you consistently make just enough to survive. Lucrative opportunities somehow slip through your fingers. You subtly sabotage potential risks, and you consistently undervalue your inherent worth. The universe consistently responds, not to your conscious words, but to your underlying vibrational frequency, and the unproductive cycle endlessly repeats itself. These are not instances of personal failure. They are invaluable opportunities for feedback. And when you begin to perceive them in this way, you cease harshly judging yourself and begin to listen attentively to the lessons they are trying to impart. You stop attempting to override reality through sheer willpower and begin recalibrating your alignment with your authentic self and universal law. So, this is how genuine personal transformation occurs. not through sheer force, but through conscious recognition and resonant alignment. Because the instant you intentionally shift your internal vibrational frequency, the external reality has no choice but to align itself accordingly. That's the immutable nature of universal law. The Kybalion wasn't created to remind you of your limitations. It was created to reveal your inherent leverage and the power you possess to intentionally shape your reality. You don't fundamentally change your life by attempting to fix the external circumstances. You change it by aligning your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions with the profound truth of the timeless laws that are already actively shaping everything around you. And once you achieve that alignment, everything begins to flow with greater ease and purpose. People begin to show up in your life differently. Lucrative opportunities appear that used to inexplicably slip past. And the world, which once felt heavy and random, begins to feel like a conscious reflection of your evolving inner state. And that reflection starts smiling back at you. Alignment doesn't imply that everything will magically become perfect without challenges or discomfort. It signifies that you've consciously stopped living in opposition to the natural rhythm and flow of the universe. It means you've consciously started listening to your own internal compass, rather than blindly following the chaotic noise of external expectations, debilitating fear, and subconscious programming. It means your internal world and external world are gradually beginning to speak the same coherent language. And in that state of harmonic resonance, you begin to experience a profound sense of peace. Not because life is inherently easy, but because it finally makes meaningful sense. You were never fundamentally broken. You were simply broadcasting the wrong signal, a signal that was incongruent with the reality you were trying to manifest. The beauty of Hermetic law is that once you consciously recognize the signal you are broadcasting, you have the inherent ability to change it, not through superficial pretense, not through forceful coercion, but by intentionally slowing down, turning inward, and genuinely feeling the subtle difference between what is authentically true for you and what is merely habitual. Truth resonates with a profound sense of relief and expansion, while habit feels subtly restrictive and perpetually repetitive. One perpetuates a state of unconscious sleepwalking, the other gently awakens you to your inherent potential. So if you are genuinely tired of the recurring cycles, if you are utterly done with blaming external fate, if you are finally ready to stop performing a role and authentically start aligning with your soul's truth, this is where that profound shift begins. The laws haven't been deliberately hiding from you, they've been patiently waiting for you to stop hiding from yourself. You've likely been conditioned to think positively, to vividly visualize your ideal life, to attempt to manifest your desires by repetitively imagining them. But what no one likely told you is that if your underlying inner vibrational frequency fundamentally contradicts what you are consciously asking for, the universe will inevitably respond to your authentic vibration, not to your consciously chosen words. Because you don't attract what you merely want. You consistently attract what you inherently are on a vibrational level. And the perceived gap between who you consciously pretend to be and what you actually feel at your deepest level is where your life gets inexplicably stuck. This is where Hermetic law transcends the realm of mere intellectual insight and becomes a powerful catalyst for profound personal transformation. It becomes a comprehensive system of inner alchemy where you don't just attempt to think different thoughts, you consciously become a different vibrational frequency. The Kybalion lays out the timeless framework, providing a map of the inner terrain. It's not inherently complicated, nor is it shrouded in mystical secrecy in the way you may have been conditioned to fear. It's fundamentally mechanical in its operation, and once you gain a functional understanding of how the Hermetic laws operate, you can consciously begin to shape your reality from the inside out, rather than futilely attempting to manipulate it from the outside in. It all begins with vibration. Everything is energy, and that energy is constantly in motion. Fear has a distinct vibrational frequency, as does unwavering confidence, debilitating shame, heartfelt gratitude, pervasive jealousy, and expansive joy. Every emotion you consciously feel is a distinct signal, and that signal has a corresponding consequence in your physical reality. When you consistently carry underlying resentment, you don't simply feel emotionally heavy. You also attract external situations that continually validate that inherent heaviness. When you consistently carry a deep sense of worthiness, the world mirrors that inherent value back to you, not because it's inherently generous, but because it's operating with unyielding precision. This is not the popular law of mere optimism, it's the immutable law of vibrational frequency. So how do you intentionally change your dominant vibrational frequency? Not by forcibly suppressing uncomfortable emotions in a futile attempt to cultivate superficial happiness, not by burying festering anger under layers of insincere gratitude, but by deliberately cultivating the capacity to observe your inner landscape with honest awareness, fully feeling the emotions that arise, and then consciously choosing the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that serve your highest potential. The universe doesn't demand absolute perfection. It simply requires authentic resonance, and you can consciously begin to shift your resonance by making small but powerful decisions each day. Intentionally choosing compassion over destructive blame, consciously choosing mindful silence over reactive outbursts, and deliberately choosing conscious intention over ingrained habit. That's the essence of inner alchemy, and the shift doesn't need to be outwardly dramatic, it simply needs to be authentically true. Next comes polarity. When you find yourself feeling emotionally low, the law of polarity reminds you that you are not irrevocably stuck in that state. You are simply occupying one end of a continuous spectrum. Every deeply ingrained fear holds the inherent potential for profound personal power. Every debilitating doubt contains the potential seed of intellectual clarity. You don't necessarily need to completely destroy what you are currently feeling. You simply need to consciously move it along the spectrum, deliberately shift it, consciously elevate it 1 degree at a time. You can't magically skip the steps along the vibrational scale, but you have the inherent capacity to consciously climb it with consistent intention. This is the transformative power of emotional transmutation. It's not about pretending to be filled with light. It's about gently lifting the darkness into the light through conscious presence, not through forceful denial. Then there's correspondence. As within, so without. Do you sincerely desire your external reality to change for the better? Then something inherent within you has to consciously shift first. That doesn't mean a punitive exercise in harsh self-blame. It simply invites a gentle and honest process of self-inquiry. What limiting stories am I still unconsciously telling myself? What outdated beliefs are still running on autopilot in the background? Where am I subconsciously vibrating from a frequency of lack while consciously asking for greater abundance? When you intentionally align your inner landscape with your conscious desires, you cease fruitlessly chasing external outcomes and begin magnetizing them effortlessly into your experience. Because the universe doesn't merely follow your chosen words, it consistently follows your coherent vibrational state. And then there's rhythm. The hermetic law that often leads many to feel as if they are perpetually failing. One day everything flows smoothly. The next day deep doubt begins to creep in. You feel deeply inspired, then inexplicably exhausted. Intellectually clear, then hopelessly confused. That doesn't indicate that you've somehow regressed in your personal evolution. It simply means that you're alive, that you are consciously participating in the natural rhythm of life. The key is not to frantically fight the inevitable low points, but to consciously meet them with gentle awareness, to intentionally use the natural period of contraction to prepare for your next phase of expansion. The truly wise don't succumb to panic during the inevitable winter season. They consciously plant seeds. They intentionally rest because they know that the vibrant return of spring is not a supernatural miracle. It's the inevitable result of immutable law. And finally, there's mentalism, the origin point of all creation. Your mind is the canvas, your thoughts are the brush, and every thought held with sufficient emotional intensity inevitably becomes manifest in the physical world, not instantly, but inexorably. If you persistently think of yourself as insignificant, the world will inevitably shrink around you to validate that limiting belief. If you consciously think of yourself as inherently aligned with divine order, you will begin to perceive that pervasive order manifesting everywhere you look. What you consistently hold internally within your mind not only subtly colors your experiences, it powerfully creates them. This is the fundamental shift. This is the transformative essence of inner alchemy. You don't fundamentally fix your life by fixing the external conditions. You reprogram the underlying frequencies that consciously shape it. You cease striving to be in conscious control and begin learning to be in vibrational alignment. Because in a mental universe meticulously governed by exact laws, alignment is genuine power. And the more fully you embody that inherent truth, the more powerfully life begins to respond, not with resistance, but with authentic resonance. You were born into a pre-existing script long before you could consciously speak. It was already in the process of being written for you, not by the benevolent universe, but by a system fundamentally designed to subtly tame your inherent brilliance, unconsciously shape your thinking, and gradually dull your natural instinct to resist conformity. From your very first day in school, you were systematically taught to obediently raise your hand for permission, to passively follow the ringing of the predetermined bell, to rote memorize information rather than critically question it. You were consistently taught that external success requires conformity, that personal safety requires compliance, and that your inherent value derives from being chosen by an external grade, an authority figure, an intimate partner, or a societal system. You weren't genuinely educated, you were subtly programmed, and that script was never genuinely yours. But you sensed it intuitively, didn't you? That quiet spark of inner resistance deep within your heart, that persistent inner voice that subtly whispered, "This isn't fundamentally who I am." Those moments in which the external world subtly pressured you to shrink into conformity, and something innate within you stubbornly refused. You may not have possessed the language to adequately articulate it, but you undoubtedly felt the inherent tension between the limited life you were subtly conditioned to live and the expansive truth that burned vibrantly beneath the surface. That's not an act of mere rebellion. That's an act of remembering, and it's never too late to consciously answer its persistent call. Because here's what no one ever explicitly told you. The system isn't fundamentally designed to awaken your authentic self. It's designed to keep you predictably useful, easily manageable, and perpetually compliant. And as long as you consciously keep following the pre-existing script, you remain confined within a manageable box, small enough to be controlled by external forces. You passively move from institutionalized schooling to a regimented work environment, to the relentless accumulation of bills, to fleeting weekend escapes, all while subconsciously wondering why life consistently feels as if it's happening in someone else's name. You consistently chase a contrived version of success that was cleverly sold to you through constant repetition, not through genuine resonance. And the more diligently you chase it, the further you inadvertently drift from your authentic self. But awakening dramatically flips the entire script, and once you consciously perceive the underlying code, you can no longer credibly pretend that it's genuinely real. You actively start to question the very architecture of your deepest desires. Do I genuinely want this in my life, or was I simply told that I should desire it? Whose limiting voice is currently narrating my ambitious goals? Is it genuinely mine, or is it merely the subtle echo of a demanding teacher, a critical parent, or a consumerist culture that subtly profits from my prolonged slumber? These challenging questions don't diminish you, they liberate you. Because the instant you consciously cease mistaking the subtly imposed script for the authentic truth, you intentionally begin to write your own empowering narrative. This is the transformational rebellion that the Hermetic laws invite you to participate in, not a destructive rebellion fueled by blind rage, but a conscious rebellion rooted in remembering your authentic nature, not chaos, but conscious clarity. You were never inherently destined to passively follow a pre-programmed script. You were inherently destined to actively be the program, a living vibration of conscious creation. But that inherent potential can only fully manifest when you consciously cease identifying with the contrived character you were assigned and start embodying the empowered creator you have always been. You're not inherently meant to simply survive within the system. You're inherently meant to transcend and outgrow it. And yes, that conscious path may initially feel isolating so if you take away just one thing from all of this, let it be this. You are not a helpless bystander in your own life. You are a powerful creator, and the universe is constantly mirroring back the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions that you hold within. By understanding and aligning yourself with these timeless, hermetic laws, you can consciously shape your reality and step into a life of purpose, joy, and genuine fulfillment. It's a journey of remembering who you truly are, beneath all the layers of conditioning and expectation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What resonated most with you? Do you have any questions about the Kybalion or these principles? Leave a comment below and let's start a conversation. And if you found this helpful and want to explore more wisdom and insights like this, please subscribe. That way you won't miss any future videos. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to connecting with you in the comments.